Hello, friends. We're back.
We're back.
Welcome to the Consumed by Grace podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Pastor Henry.
And I'm Pastor Brooke, and it has been a minute.
It has been a minute. We realized just as we were setting up for this that it's been about 6 months since we've done anything, even though the episodes have been coming out along this time. So we wound up having a little unintentional but nice little break.
Needed break.
And we are back, to talk about some fun stuff with us that'll bring out a little bit of our nerddom, and probably will touch on a little bit of everybody's nerddom
in some
way, shape, form, or fashion. Because we're going to be doing this season is all about cults.
Yeah.
Cults.
What we already know, what we think we might know, what we don't have any idea about.
What we don't have any idea about, how much this actually plays into our normal everyday life.
So much.
And how, particularly with the language we choose to use in a lot of unrelated situations, and how that all fits into this historic cult idea and language. So, y'all, this is going to be fun. So over the next several weeks, we're going to try to give you a good baseline of what is a cult and how we see that acting out now, and some of the language markers of that. We're going to spend a little time talking about some religious cults, some famous ones that we know really big, Jim Jones, everybody.
Yeah.
But then maybe some that we are not as familiar about unless you're really into some of your deeply religious circles like IBLP.
Yep.
Will be some. We're going to talk a bit about business cults, starting to get into a little bit of the MLM stuff, and when some of those have crossed the line. One that's a little bit of a passion for both of us. How does cults and cultish language fit in the fitness world?
Yeah. And it's surprisingly prevalent, I would say, in really like our everyday lives that we just don't realize.
You don't realize it. One of the books that we're going to be using and referencing frequently throughout this is a book called Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, Understanding the Social Science of Cult Influence by Amanda Montell. And she does a really great job at highlighting how some of these things that are such a part of our everyday life really are cult influence, not necessarily a cult. That's why she uses the word cultish. So that's fun. We're also going to talk a little bit about social media and how that can make us maybe a little more vulnerable or susceptible to cultish influence. So this is going to be a fun time. We do want to take just a little bit of a moment to recognize the when we are recording it, especially for our listeners who are not watching us on YouTube, though you can watch it on YouTube if you ever want to see the weird people that we look like. We got to talk just a little bit about our shirts, and that we're going to reference throughout the show. So, Brooke, tell us what you got.
Okay, so for today, my shirt is dual purpose because we are recording on Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
And so my shirt is actually, it was gifted to me by a friend. And if you are from the Huntsville area, you may recognize it as the yellow hat from the institution that is or was El Palacio. May it rest in peace. El Palacio was a Mexican restaurant on the Parkway, and it closed down several years ago. But it had more of a, I would not call it a cult, but it had a cult following, which we will talk about here in a little bit.
Yes, we will explain what that means. Mine is multifaceted as well. This is May 5th. So yesterday was May 4th, as in May the 4th be with you.
And also with you.
And that, yep. Again, multiple nerddoms are being affected here. Today is also May 5th, which is Revenge of the 5th, which hopefully you know what those are. If if you don't know what those are, that means you have not seen Star Wars. And the shirt I'm wearing is a Star Wars shirt featuring the poster of A New Hope. But I got it when the Shoals Symphony Orchestra showed the movie and then played the scores along with it. So it was that super fun kind of immersive. You're watching the movie and with the orchestra playing the music live. It was such a fun thing. Star Wars, which depending on how rabid you are into that particular movie that sprawled into books and comic books and video games and cartoons and this whole genre basically in and to itself has some pretty core hardcore fans of it. One might even say they're religiously devoted. And it is it looks cultish at different times. So again, that's just something we're going to talk a little bit about as we go through this series, as how cults in general have become a part of our regular language we use all the time. Yeah.
And, what's interesting and something that I was reminded of when I was re-listening to this book is how much our language does play into cults, or what she calls cultish, which is a language in and of itself, is how she kind of describes it. That not everything as it's defined, a cult is defined, not everything necessarily falls under that, but it's, parallel maybe.
Yes, absolutely. It's the way it's the way that language develops, and something that might start in a very particular place or on the fringe of usage all of a sudden gets adopted by wider culture and is then just becomes a part of our everyday language, and we don't realize the things that we're saying and their origins. And it's fun. There's a podcast I listen to, and each week they take a random idiom, a random regular saying, and delve into the history of that. It's just super fun because some of these things have the weirdest origins that you would not imagine, and we see that in cultish language. But first, we have to talk about what a cult actually is. And I think the easiest thing to do is just to go to dictionary.com and get the basic definition for it. As you'll see, if you do that, there are several definitions for what a cult is. And so we're just going to go down the list and discuss them if we need to. A particular system of, the first one is a particular system of religious worship, especially with reference to its rites and ceremonies. So that's important because literally under the true definition of a cult, everything is a cult. If you are a part of a church, if you are a part of a religion, if you are a part of something that has regular worship, has particular rites and ceremonies, you are part of a cult. So in that way, and I want to just take a minute to say that in the truest definition of a cult, that's not a negative. It's just an is. Cult later has become associated with the more negative ideas surrounding it. But at its core, it's just, hey, it's a religious thing.
And I like in the book, she mentions, hey, like at some point, cults just became famous for the bad things that happened in them. But there are cults all over the world that you don't even know about because there's not been anything negative that happened to them or within them. And so, great to point out that a cult is just what it is.
The second is an instance of great veneration of a person, ideal, or thing, especially as manifested by a body of admirers. So at that point, it's less about necessarily a particular general idea of worship, and it is more about the veneration of a particular person, ideal, or thing. Again, that's not necessarily bad in and of itself. It's how does that veneration manifest?
Yeah.
What does it look like? Which then, because that even in itself opens it up to a very wide interpretation about what a cult is. Because especially if you're from where we are in the deep South, when you get to the fall, what's the holiest day of the week?
Football, baby.
Football Saturdays. And if you go to Bryant Denny, if you go to Jordan Hare, if you go to football stadiums, really across the country, we're deep in SEC country. There's some pretty devoted people who are venerating an ideal.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes that football is their church,
Yeah.
Or it becomes that. Yeah.
Third, we've got the object of such devotion. I feel like that's just kind of going forward. And, fourth, a group or sect bound together by the veneration of the same thing, person, ideal. Yep.
Perfect.
Continuing to go on. Fifth, sociology, a group having a sacred ideology and a set of rites centering around their sacred symbols. Again, we're just continuing to go in line with what we've seen. All of these are innocuous in and of themselves until you get into their particular practices. 6, a religion or sect considered to be false, unorthodox, or extremist, with members often living outside of conventional society under the direction of a charismatic leader.
Okay. So we're talking about like Jim Jones, those kinds of groups.
David Koresh, Charles Manson are some of the easy ones that I think come to mind in our American context. But I think that's interesting because this is the first instance where we see, okay, negative.
Yeah.
Like out and out negative. And this is what I would say for most of us who haven't maybe studied religion a great deal, this is what we think is the number one definition of a cult.
Or first thing that comes to mind.
It is the first thing that comes to mind. 7, the members of such a religion or cult. So again, any people who are a part of any religion are technically part of a cult. It's just now we've kind of superseded that with that previous definition.
Yeah.
And finally, any system for treating human sickness that are originated by a person usually claiming to have sole insight into the nature of disease that employs methods regarded as unorthodox or unscientific. So when you see a cult approach to dealing with disease or dealing with sickness, this is what they're talking about.
And can we also add, I wonder, I'm actually posing this as a question, can you also add, like, these are methods that probably are not founded by research?
I would say that's a fair way to I think that fits into the unorthodox or unscientific
part
idea. These are people who just come up with something that, to treat this, you do this.
Got it.
And there's really no actual basis for why you do that.
No foundational understanding of, got it. Yep.
And so that is at the core what a cult is. And again, I just want to emphasize, whatever church you go to, whatever religion you're a part of, at its core, it's a cult. And that's not a negative thing in and of itself. But what has happened over usage and the way the language has developed, cult has now taken on really that 6 negative definition is our basic understanding of what a cult is. It's somebody on the fringe. It's something that's out of mainstream. You even see that when bands start becoming popular, what do they have? They have a cult following. A movie that bombs at the box office but starts doing better once it comes onto Netflix is called a cult favorite. It's on the fringe. It has people who are devoted that are not the major part of broader society. That's where the main definition has turned the last few years.
Yeah. And I think that's important to know as we dig into this book and get further into it. Is it's not what we'll talk about may be the negative side and what we have come to understand as what a cult is. But there's also the flip side to that not everything that looks like a cult is a cult in that number 6 defined way.
Yes. And so as we go along, we'll talk about things that use cultish language. But that in and of himself doesn't make it negative. And she has some great quotes. Again, cultish author Amanda Montell, some great quotes to think through language and whatnot. The first one is, that's because language doesn't work to manipulate people into believing things they don't want to believe. Instead, it gives them license to believe ideas that they're already open to. Language, both literal and figurative, well-intentioned and ill-intentioned, politically correct and politically incorrect, reshapes a person's reality only if they are in an ideological place to where that reshaping is welcome. So I think that's so interesting. Language helps us go places we want to go. Very rarely where there'll be the case where just somebody's language, someone's persuasion works in such a way to make us automatically become open to something that we're not open to.
Yeah. She explains somewhere, I wish I had page references, but I don't. But in the first section of this book, she explains somewhere that usually language is the first stop for people. That's the when we think about changing the way we think or act, or language is the first place, the easiest place to kind of begin. She even uses it as an example of, like, if you go to a worship service and they start reciting some kind of a creed or liturgy of some kind. That's a word that we use in church, of course. But if they have like a formal thing that they are reciting together, what do you do? Like, as an outsider, what do you do when that happens? Likely you join in. It might be a little uncomfortable, but you don't want to be left out, right? And so our words are kind of the first thing, the easiest thing to change.
They are, and having that common shared language is something that binds us together as people. I had a worship professor in seminary who talked about that, and he said, truly speaking, for the average worship service across all styles, if you have liturgical moments, not everyone have, and that's fine if you don't, but across liturgical worship services, in his mind, the most important moments of the worship service were not the preaching, were not not even necessarily the singing, because a lot of people don't sing, but it's when you say the Lord's Prayer and it's when you say the Apostles' Creed. Why? Because that's when the most people are saying the same thing at the same time. Yeah, interesting.
It just came to mind, what popped into my head when we started talking about this, the Pledge of Allegiance. What is the first thing that they do at school? Or that's what we used to do. I don't think they do it first thing anymore. I think they wait a little while. But first thing that we did, we stood up, said the pledge together. And
why you're trying to put people on common ground around and consolidate around something hopefully everyone believes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting. But language, so that's the normal part of it. But then it can kind of go a little bit farther. And again, Amanda Montell writes, when language works to make you question your own perceptions, whether at work or at church, that's a form of gaslighting. So that's a big topic that's coming up more and more in our world today. So we're going to talk more about that. But said, I first came across the term gaslighting in the context of abusive romantic partners, but it shows up in larger scale relationships too, like those between bosses and their employees, politicians and their supporters, spiritual leaders and their devotees. Across the board, gaslighting is a way of psychologically manipulating someone or many people such that they doubt their own reality as a way to gain and maintain control. And I think that's huge, because it's in this that we see the shift between those first 5 definitions and when you start to get into 6.
Yeah.
When you're using your language to manipulate or control, that's problematic.
Yeah. I was just thinking about another thing that she said about I don't remember if it was in the gaslighting section or maybe right before or right after that, but it was about how it was about the millennials, I believe, is who she came like this group of people that they just want to be told what to do. They don't want to make decisions. They just want to be told, this is what I believe. This is where I show up. This is when I show up. Like, I just want you to give it to me on a platter. And gaslighting match it. Like, to me, that matches what we're talking about, that's the easiest way to, like, indoctrinate yourself into a group of people, right? Is you take advantage of, hey, these people just want to be told what to do. Let me use gaslighting to manipulate them in that way.
And it's easy to pick on millennials, and we can do that because
we are millennials.
That's what we are.
That's right.
At the same time, like, I think that's just people.
And it could be, for sure.
I think that is just something that a certain amount of folks, because of their personality type, because of their life stresses, like, just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
I get that, and I think that's how we can end up this way, and how we do that. So what is gaslighting? Again, coming from dictionary.com, it is the use of psychological manipulation to undermine a person's faith in their own judgment, memory, or sanity. And if my memory serves right, I believe this comes from, I think it was a book. I don't think it was a real event, but it may have been. I'll have to double check this, where this woman was being manipulated by her husband, and the way he was doing that was controlling the light in the gaslit lamps in their house.
Oh, okay.
And so he was using the gas lighting to manipulate her into thinking that she was crazy.
Yeah.
When really he was purposefully doing something to her.
Yeah.
Finally, the practice of deceiving people through the repetition of a constructed false narrative. And I dare I say, this is something that we see all the time. This is in politics, this is in advertising to consumers, this can be in the church, which it is why it's so careful to be aware of, where we are, who we are, and what are the things that ground us to keep us from being susceptible to this kind of manipulation. Yeah,
being grounded in, especially in faith. I mean, we are obviously a part of a church, and that's why we're doing this, is to be grounded. And that's, I mean, like you say, it's why it's so important to be, it's necessary for us to be careful about the way that we hear things and are accept things.
Yes.
Right? We receive things that are being spoken over us. And I say it all the time. Don't take my word for it. Go look this up for yourself, because that's important to us.
It is important.
That's important to us, is that people are doing their own research, that they're growing their own faith, not my faith or your faith that we're giving to them, but they have their own foundation.
Yeah. And it's important because there can be things that come up. We as pastors, and all pastors, make mistakes. Like,
of course,
that thing happens, whether we misspoke, we read something that we thought was true, that it turns out was untrue. We had a funny little moment yesterday where because I got all excited because I saw a post that said Lane Kiffin was going to be on the new Golden Bachelor. And
I was like, that's epic. I will watch The Bachelor forever now.
For football fans and a fan of the chaos that surrounds Lane Kiffin, yes, I'm here for that, even though I've never watched more than one episode of a season of The Bachelor.
I'm not a Bachelor person either.
Until I did a little more looking, and it was like, oh, darn, that was a troll account. But man, what a good, yes, I would have been here for that.
I would have never been so disappointed in my life as to be like, man, I don't get to watch that train wreck. I'm so sad.
Dude, that would have been so good. So, anyway, that's just one of those things. We make mistakes. We read things that are wrong, and we have to correct them. But I think there's also, and this is particularly for us or anyone who's in a position of authority, we need to be aware of how easy it is to fall into the trap of doing this. Which is why it's important for us to have people in our lives who will tell us, hey, you're doing that wrong. Yeah. Hey, this is something's fishy about this, and be willing to accept that and sit with that.
Yeah, and sometimes there are people who are really good at this out in the world, and sometimes it's real easy. They make it really easy to believe that something is true or real, or I think about people get scammed all the time, and we have to say, hey, as friends of, as sometimes as pastors, but really, truly as friends or family, like, hey, take a step back. Like, this looks too good to be true. It probably is too good to be true. Like, let's take care of each other in those ways to make sure that we're helping.
Which is why this idea is so, it starts in faith. It started in faith, and there's going to be a significant religious component. But we see this in the business world. We see this in the fitness world. We see this in the social media world. We see this in the Star Wars fandom world, where people end up getting manipulated and hurt because they let a seductive idea, seductive language of something where they kind of wanted to believe get them. Nice save.
I almost sneezed.
That was a good save. I had my cucumber ready. Cucumbers is one of those things you can say if you want to stop somebody from sneezing.
Or banana, or...
But I've always kind of found that mean, because generally speaking, if I've got to sneeze, like, I want to sneeze.
Same. I need everybody, if you're not watching this on YouTube, to go back.
Go watch
this last 15 seconds, because I literally thought I was going to sneeze.
A couple more quotes as we wrap up. That continue this idea of language and how some of this has made it into our daily language, and something that I personally feel, or we personally feel, is something we as a church need to be careful of. Contentious debates aside, thought-terminating cliches also pervade our everyday conversations. Expressions like, it is what it is, boys will be boys, everything happens for a reason, it's all God plans, and certainly don't think too hard, are all common examples. Among New Age types, I've also heard semantic stop signs come in the form of wily maxims like, truth is a construct, none of this matters on a cosmic level. I hold space for multiple realities. Don't let yourself be ruled by fear, dismissing any anxiety or doubts as limiting beliefs. I think all of us have said at least a couple of these, maybe even all of these at some point in time. They're not necessarily bad in themselves, but how are they being used? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's almost as if it's just an acceptance of the world around us, whether it is right or wrong.
Yeah. And it can be that. But what it can also be is a way to diffuse a legitimate question or issue, because either it makes us uncomfortable or it doesn't fit with the agenda we have. And that's when they come problematic. I like the term thought-terminating cliche. It'd be one thing to say, hey, this is kind of where I think this is, I think this is a pretty simple issue. I don't think we have to think too hard about it. But you know what? If this is important to you, let's deal with it. That's different than don't think too hard about this. So stop thinking about this,
Or, I mean, more importantly, I would even say, like, the boys will be boys or girls will be girls. Like, no. We're going to not do that anymore.
Yes.
Let's not do that anymore.
Yes, because what that does is that excuses, at minimum, problematic behavior. At worst, criminal behavior.
Yes.
Things are not okay. It's not just, oh, bless their heart.
Yes, and they're just... boys will be boys or girls will be girls.
No.
Nope.
Part of that comes from having higher expectations of people, because it's funny how, especially in some of these cult contexts that we're going to look at, on the one hand, the leader is building up a high expectation of who they are, and a high, you're supposed to hold them in such high regard, and yet doing things to make you lower the standard for what kind of conduct they can have.
Not okay.
Yeah, not okay at all. Finally, and I think this is important, again, when talking about situations like that, the results of all these institutions is the same. A power imbalance built on members' devotion, hero worship, and absolute trust, which frequently facilitates abuse on the part of unaccountable leaders. The glue that keeps this trust intact is members' belief that their leaders have rare access to transcendent wisdom, which allows for them to exercise control over their system of rewards and punishments, both here on earth and in the afterlife. And that's where you have a cult from definition one that becomes a cult in definition number 6. It becomes problematic. It becomes manipulative. It becomes abusive, where someone is using all of these different steps and language and keystones and eroding your self-will, your self-identity, and raising themselves as the only person who has the answers to whatever is going on.
Yeah. I think that's important as we move forward through the rest of this series, is to remember, when we talk about cults in the next several episodes, it'll be the definition 6. It'll be when a line has been crossed over from it's just a group of people who are aligned with the same thing to this is promotes negative behavior on behalf of either a single person, a group of people, whatever that may be.
This is a healthy group of people who are gathering either in what we would call a full-fledged religious worship, or just something that has that devotion, but maybe doesn't go to the full way, to something that is now going into abusive patterns and just truly negative behavior that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And it's also going to be heavy.
I know. And, as we were talking earlier with a friend about, we love to watch the documentaries on Netflix about different cults. And we're so drawn to and fascinated, really, by the dynamic of the number 6 definition of what a cult is. And we often lose sight of the fact that these are real people who are truly impacted by, the ramifications of what these cults have done.
It's real people, and sometimes I think we watch this stuff in the same way that when you see someone pulled over for speeding, I'm going to gawk, I'm going to look, and you're going to slow up traffic. Stop doing that.
Yeah, don't do that. Rubbernecking. She talks about rubbernecking.
She does talk about rubbernecking. Yeah. You just can't look away. And so we get some of that. I also think we sometimes do that from a place of intellectual superiority, because we think, oh, those silly people. I can't believe they let that happen to themselves.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with intelligence.
Yep.
There are a lot of factors that end up with someone joining a cult. And you will read story after story of people like, I don't know how I got here. Yeah. Or, you know what? I got out, thankfully, but those were still some of the best years of my life, even with all the it's so complex.
It is. Yeah.
So hopefully doing this will make us a little more self-aware of some of our own triggers and just the things that we might be susceptible to, things that we can be drawn into that can end up in a bad place.
Yeah. So I'm excited. This will be a fun. If you want to grab the book, again, it's called Cultish by Amanda Montell, The Language of Fanaticism, Understanding the Social Sciences of Cult Influence. You're welcome to read it along with us. You don't have to if you don't want to. So this will be sort of like a book club type.
It will be a little bit of a book club.
It will be a little book club adjacent this time.
There you go.
But if you want to grab that, that's what we're using as our reference for this podcast, and we're excited to get to dive into this summer.
And that's one of those things that you can find in all sorts of places, just like all the places you can find our podcast, which are where, Brooke?
All of the places, anywhere that you're listening to your podcast right now, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and then, of course, you can see our lovely faces on our YouTube channel at ARABUMC on YouTube. We have a whole playlist of all of the Consumed by Grace podcasts.
You can go back and get a little bit more flavor for history, and we really have run the gamut of different things at this point in time. So we'd love for you to go back and join us. Hopefully, someone watching this, probably your husband Chris, I imagine, is going to get the screenshot of you sneezing. And
I can't wait for that to become a meme. Here we are.
But y'all, we are so glad that you have found us. If you're enjoying what we do, don't forget to give us a like, give us a follow. If you're really enjoying it, share it with someone who you think will also enjoy it. And we can't wait to spend the rest of the season with you.
Yeah, we'll see you next time on Consumed by Grace.
Bye.
Bye.